Good morning, afternoon, evening, everyone. Today, I stand before you under a title that resonates deeply with the soul of every person who has ever faced adversity and dared to stand tall again. You may trod me in the very dirt, but still like dust I'll rise. These words from the incomparable Maya Angelou are not just lines of poetry, they are a battle cry for the human spirit. Throughout history, people have been pushed down, silenced, oppressed, and forgotten. But time and again, they have risen. Think of Nelson Mandela in prison for 27 years, yet emerging not with vengeance, but with vision. Think of Malala Yousafzai, shot for going to school, yet rising to win the Nobel Peace Prize. Think of every one of us who has known failure, heartbreak, rejection, and still chose to rise. Rising is not easy. It takes strength to lift yourself when the weight of the world tries to bury you. But like dust, ever-present, impossible to contain. We rise because our value, our dignity, and our dreams cannot be destroyed. Rising means reclaiming your narrative. It means refusing to be defined by others' opinions or limited by others' fears. It means knowing that your scars are not signs of weakness, but of survival. Let us teach our children not just how to win, but how to rise. Let us build communities where falling is not shameful, but staying down is. Let us remind each other that when one of us rises, we all do. So the next time life tries to crush you under its weight, remember this: you may trod me in the very dirt, but still, like dust I'll rise. Not just because I can, but because I must. At the heart of the line, you may trod me in the very dirt, but still, like dust, I'll rise. The timeless spirit of resilience, the ability to endure hardship, withstand pressure, and emerge stronger. This quote is not just poetic imagery. It is a profound metaphor for human strength. Dirt symbolizes humiliation, defeat, and degradation, the low points where one feels discarded and devalued. And yet the comparison to dust speaks of inevitability and persistence, of something light yet powerful, suppressed yet uncontainable. Resilience is not the absence of struggle, but the decision to keep going in spite of it. The line suggests that no matter how thoroughly someone is beaten down, trampled upon, or belittled, there is an innate force within them, an unquenchable will that lifts them back up. It's an affirmation that power over one's spirit cannot be held indefinitely by external forces. People may attempt to destroy your hope or confidence, but as long as you choose to rise, you remain unconquered. The metaphor of dust is especially meaningful. Dust is seemingly insignificant, light, fragile, and overlooked, yet it survives everything. Fires may burn buildings, storms may flood cities, but dust always returns, floating in the air, clinging to surfaces, reminding us of what endures. Resilience, like dust, is not flashy or grand. It doesn't always make noise. It persists quietly, relentlessly. It reappears after every sweeping attempt to erase it. In the context of history, especially for marginalized communities, this line speaks to centuries of oppression. From slavery and colonization to segregation and systemic inequality, the dirt in which people have been buried has been very real. But equally real is the record of resistance and survival. The quote becomes a voice for those who were silenced, a stance for those forced to kneel, and a vow from those left behind that they will rise and keep rising. On a personal level, resilience manifests in the countless invisible battles people fight every day. Whether it's recovering from failure, enduring illness, grieving loss, or navigating rejection, everyone has experienced moments when they've been metaphorically trodden into the dirt. This quote affirms that such moments do not define us. Our response to them does. Rising from those moments is not just an act of defiance. It is an act of self-respect. Furthermore, this kind of resilience does not deny pain or suffering. It doesn't pretend that being pushed down isn't damaging. Rather, it acknowledges the harm while refusing to let that harm write the final chapter. True resilience involves mourning, healing, and then gradually finding the strength to get back up. Rising is not a denial of the dirt. It is proof that the dirt could not bury us. The quote also challenges the power dynamics in society. Those who try to tread others down do so with the assumption that they have power, that their actions can crush the spirit of another. But Angelou's words flip the script. No matter how aggressively one is suppressed, there is something unyielding in the soul that no hand, no system, no cruelty can erase. That silent promise to rise undermines the entire structure of oppression because it reveals the limits of its control. Finally, resilience in this context becomes more than personal. It becomes collective and cultural. It's the spirit that fuels movements, revolutions, and awakenings. It's what brings people together to say, we've been down, but we're not defeated. This resilience echoes in art, in protest, in education, in progress. It is not just survival, it is a determination to thrive despite every attempt to make one disappear. The power of Maya Angelou's quote is not just in its poetic beauty, but in how vividly it reflects the lived experiences of countless individuals throughout history. Time and again, figures who were cast down, marginalized, or brutalized have demonstrated a remarkable capacity to rise above their circumstances. These real-life examples give the words flesh and meaning. They remind us that resilience is not merely theoretical. It is alive in people's stories, struggles, and triumphs. Consider the life of Nelson Mandela, who was imprisoned for 27 years for opposing South Africa's apartheid regime. He was isolated, silenced, and treated as a threat for advocating equality. Many believed the system had crushed him. Yet upon his release, Mandela rose, not with vengeance, but with a vision for reconciliation and unity. He went on to lead a nation as its first Black president, showing the world that the human spirit could not be broken by bars or brutality. His rise became a symbol of hope not only for South Africans, but for oppressed people worldwide. Likewise, Malala Yousafzai was targeted and shot by the Taliban for daring to seek education as a young girl in Pakistan. Her attackers sought to silence her voice permanently, but she did not just survive, she rose. She used her platform to become an international advocate for girls' education, earning the Nobel Peace Prize at the age of 17. Malala's story embodies the idea that the very act meant to erase her instead propelled her into global leadership, proving that adversity can become the soil from which new strength grows. The story of Harriet Tubman offers another powerful example. Born into slavery, she escaped, and then returned again and again to lead others to freedom. In a time when Black women were considered property, Tubman became a general in a war for liberation. She was hunted, threatened, and betrayed. Yet she rose above fear and danger, driven by an unshakable belief in justice. Her resilience was not only personal, it was revolutionary, reshaping history itself. Personal stories of rising from hardship are not confined to famous figures. Everyday people around the world exhibit the same unbreakable spirit. Think of the single mother working multiple jobs to feed her children, the refugee who builds a new life after fleeing war, the student who rises from poverty to earn a degree, or the patient who fights through a life-threatening illness. Each of these individuals echoes the words, "You may trod me in the very dirt, but still, like dust, I'll rise." Even in the world of creativity and expression, we see this theme play out. Take Frida Kahlo, a Mexican artist who endured physical pain, disability, and heartbreak throughout her life. Rather than allow suffering to silence her, she turned her wounds into vibrant and haunting art. Her paintings became a voice for the voiceless and a testament to the power of creation in the face of despair. She did not simply survive. She redefined herself through her struggle, showing that resilience can also be deeply artistic. Resilience is also evident in movements, collective rises that reflect the strength of a people. The civil rights movement in the United States, for example, was born out of centuries of racial injustice. Leaders like Martin Luther King Jr., Rosa Parks, and John Lewis were attacked, jailed, and threatened. Yet the movement did not dissolve, it grew stronger. These individuals and the communities they represented chose to rise with dignity, nonviolence, and purpose. Their actions changed laws, but more importantly, they shifted the moral conscience of a nation. The global impact of these examples cannot be overstated. They teach us that rising is not reserved for the privileged or powerful. On the contrary, the most powerful risings often come from those with the least support, the fewest rights, and the deepest wounds. When they rise, their courage becomes a mirror in which others see their own potential. These stories are proof that resilience is not just an inner strength. It is a contagious force that inspires and empowers others to rise too. Resilience is one of the most deeply shared human experiences. It transcends language, culture, gender, and age. No matter who we are or where we come from, every one of us has faced moments that test our strength and challenge our spirit. This shared reality is what makes Maya Angelou's words so powerful. When she writes, "But still like dust, I'll rise," she isn't speaking just for herself. She is voicing the quiet, determined truth that lives in each of us. We have all been pushed down, and we all know what it means to stand back up. From early childhood to old age, people encounter experiences that demand resilience. A child bullied at school, a teenager facing academic failure, a young adult dealing with rejection or heartbreak. These are early tests of the inner strength we spend our lives developing. Even in these small, private moments, the principle is the same. Despite the pain, despite the disappointment, we keep going. We learn to rise not all at once, but inch by inch, moment by moment, through repeated trials. As we move through life, the challenges evolve, but the need for resilience only deepens. Losing a loved one, losing a job, watching dreams collapse. These are moments that can shatter one's confidence and sense of direction. And yet, in nearly every case, people find ways to heal, to rebuild, to believe again. This is the essence of the universal experience. Even when life strips us down, the will to rise continues to beat within us quietly but insistently. What binds us together as humans is not just that we suffer, but that we respond to suffering with perseverance. Across every continent, in every society, there are stories of people who have withstood hardship, not because they were stronger than others, but because something within them refused to give up. That is something. It may take many forms: love for family, belief in a cause, faith, hope, or even pure stubbornness. Whatever it is a universal force that sustains us when nothing else does. Beauty of this shared resilience is that it fosters empathy. When we hear someone else's story of pain and perseverance, it resonates deeply because we felt something similar. We may not have walked the same path, but we recognize the emotional terrain, the fear, the fatigue, the fight. That recognition connects us, not as strangers, but as fellow travelers in a life that demands courage again and again. Resilience makes us human, and humanity is strengthened by our shared struggle to rise. This universality also means that resilience does not belong to a select few. It is not reserved for heroes or historical figures. It exists in the elderly woman who rises every morning after losing her spouse, in the father who works through injury to support his children, in the student who studies by candlelight in poverty, hoping for a better life. Their stories may never be written in books, but their quiet endurance carries the same spirit that Angelou immortalized in her poem. In communities shaped by hardship, whether through poverty, discrimination, war, or disaster, resilience is a daily act of survival. These communities demonstrate that resilience is not always dramatic or loud. Sometimes it's getting out of bed. Sometimes it's holding on to dignity when the world tries to take it. Sometimes it's simply refusing to give up. And even when no one is watching, that refusal to surrender is an act of immense power. What Maya Angelou captures so clearly is that resilience is not a rare trait of the extraordinary. It is the defining feature of the ordinary. In this way, her words become a mirror that reflects the strength we already possess, the kind of strength that is exercised not on grand stages, but in quiet, everyday acts of endurance. No matter how deeply we've been trodden down, we know, somehow instinctively, that we are meant to rise.